Thank you very much, Stephen. Well, welcome, Sabino. Thank you very much for attending. If I could ask you just to spend 10-15 minutes giving us an overview from your perspective, to ask the question, what can the ISITC community do today? What can they need to wait for? Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to explain you a little bit at what stage of the development of the MiFID we are nowadays, and which are the measures that we are discussing, and which will be the discussions that will take place in the near future, and which are our expectations for it. So I guess that most of you, or if not all of you, know what the MiFID is. The MiFID is the Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, and it was adopted in 2004, in April 2004. But the directive, as it is what we call a Lamfalussy directive, is a framework legislation. So there we establish the general principles that have to be developed through what we call the level 2 measures, which is nothing more than a set of implementing rules that allow to apply those general principles to the specific cases that the legislation refers to. So the situation in which we are now is that the directive is adopted. It was supposed to be transposed into national legislation by 2006, so 2 years of delay since the adoption till the effective put into practice of the directive. But this date has changed, or is in the phase of being changed, because of the fact that we have considered that 2 years were not sufficient in order to put into practice all the different measures that the MiFID is aiming for. Because it's, as it's a very comprehensive set of legislation, most or many of the parts of the investment firms that go from the operational aspects to the organization of the firms to the relationships with the clients, all of them are going to change in some stage or another. Perhaps from some member states it will not be a very radical change in some areas, and it will be a radical change in another, and from other member states it will be the same. It's, for example, in respect of market regulation, when we talk about transparency, or when we talk about the abolition of the concentration rule, well, for some member states this will not be anything new, whilst for others it will be quite new. So now what we have proposed is to extend the transposition period by 9 months, and to have another additional 9 months since the transposition for the firms, in order to be able to adapt their systems to what the new legislation is going to impose. One of the reasons also why we have extended the delay is because it has taken more time than expected to draft and to adopt the level 2 measures, which are not already adopted, but we foresee that they will be adopted before the summer. Because there we have had to rely on the advice that was given to us by the Committee of European Securities Regulators, and then we have been discussing the measures with the member states. The thing now is that we started discussing at the European Securities Committee with the member states the different measures in January 2005, so last year, and we have been discussing on the basis of draft papers, informal papers, on the different issues that were going to be adopted at level 2, and after that informal discussion, we have adopted, or the Commission has formally adopted, a proposal for level 2 measures, which consists in 2 different types of regulatory measures. One is regulation, and the other one is directive. the regulation is applicable mostly to those issues that we consider that can be directly applicable to the markets and to the firms without the need of further legislative intervention by the member states. And after having discussed this thoroughly with the different member states involved and also inside the Commission and also with the industry and with the different stakeholders, we have concluded that the most appropriate areas for being legislated through a regulation were those that deal with transparency issues, with transaction reporting, and with commodity derivatives mainly. I mean, they are in the regulation. We will have all the areas that deal with the reporting that you have to do to your regulators, because there we consider that it was important that there was only one set of information given to regulators in respect of transaction reporting, and that it is the same wherever you provide your services in Europe. So I mean, we didn't want to have national differences in respect of reporting, because I mean, we think that that was very important, not only for facilitating the exchange of information between regulators, but also to facilitate cross-border business and possible cross-border consolidation of business, which is something that we think is also important at European level. The other area that we also include in the regulation is the one that relates to transparency, which is free and post-trade transparency for regulated markets and for investment firms when they are dealing outside the regulated markets, is what we usually call internalization. I mean, there we have definitions of systematic internalizer, for example, which is a concept that was included into the directive, and which will be those firms that match orders in-house, but they have a market functionality. So it's not only that you match your orders in-house, but also that you are, in a certain way, providing a market function which ways also to price discovery. And that's called the systematic internalizer. Also the definition of what are liquid shares, those shares where if you want to internalize, you will have to publish prices. And there we also have included some kind of national discretion, because I mean, after the discussions we had at the ISITC level with the member states and also with the industry, we have concluded that a reasonable number of liquid shares will be around 500, which is something that we are going to have more or less. But in some cases, and this has also to be taken into account, we are not talking exclusively about economical liquidity. There is also a sense of political liquidity in some member states where there might not be liquid shares in economic terms. At least we allow those member states to choose to have up to 5 political liquid shares, so that there is something like that. And also we have included in the regulation the different elements that have to be disclosed post-trade, and there we have made also an effort of rationalization with respect to the elements that were given to us by the different regulators, by the CISR advice, and we have tried to streamline the concepts in a sense that we try to put the same elements that you have to disclose to your regulators when you are doing your transaction reporting to your regulators. Well, part of those elements will be the ones that you will also have to disclose to your market once you have done the deal. So I mean, there will be a kind of logical sequence in all the information that you have to, that you have to report either to your clients or to the market or to the regulators. Usually you will have to disclose post-trade transparency less elements, but then you will, on the basis of that elements, and you will be building something more in the reporting to your clients, something more in the reporting to your regulators. But I mean, they will not be different elements. That's what I was trying to explain. Also, in the regulation, we have the different criteria for admission to trading shares and other financial instruments in regulated markets. And there we are working on the basis of high-level principles. And the last part is the definition of commodity derivatives. So what are commodity derivatives, and which is the scope in terms of instruments and of the regulation. The other areas that are the things that are not in the regulation are in the directive, and those that are in the directive are mostly conduct of business rules, and organizational requirements, and also all the aspects related to the definition, for example, of investment advice. I mean, we as Commission, we were very keen on the fact that we would have liked to have everything, or most of the things, into the regulation, because I mean, for us, this whole MiFID exercise is not only an exercise of harmonization. I mean, of course, our main goal as European Commission is to facilitate the creation of the single market, and we think that the best way of doing that is through the country of origin principle, but the country of origin principle has to come along with a certain degree of harmonization, or an important degree of harmonization, because otherwise we see that whenever you don't have harmonization, and you have this recent example of for example, the Services Directive, and then you always have national interests that try to avoid that the country of origin principle functions adequately. But we think that we have avoided that problem in the financial sector, or at least in the Financial Instruments Directive. But apart from that, I mean, our objective is also to try to rationalize the level of regulation to which banks and investment firms are confronted when doing operations. So, I mean, in other terms, I mean, what we try is to avoid as much as possible that there is gold plating. We thought that for that, the regulation was a very good instrument, I mean, because it avoids as much as possible that member states come with another set of rules apart from the one on the regulation. But on the other hand, I mean, we have also seen, and it was pointed out by many member states, that in the areas that we are dealing with in the directive, they are also related to other areas of law, especially to civil law, contractual issues, and all that. And it was very difficult to regulate that through the regulation, because I mean, it was needed a kind of flexibility in the transposition of the different measures, and that's why we have chosen to have a directive. But does this mean that having a directive, we are not going to maintain our goal, which was the avoidance of gold plating? So we have tried that. That's not the case. I mean, and what we have done is we have included some provisions in form of recitals and also in the articles, saying that this is the level of regulation that we think that is appropriate for regulating the business, and that member states should not go beyond this level, but they should not go beyond neither in terms of detail nor in terms of principles, because that's another of the points is that the kind of regulation that we are trying to pass is a principle-based one. So I mean, we are establishing in the directive a set of principles with which you have to comply. you to organize the implementation of the principles in the way that you think it best suits to you. Because this does not give 100% legal certainty, but we think that is the best way to make the firms and the persons that have to that deal with this issue responsible, because that's something that we think is important, that there is responsibility and that regulators focus on and through contacts with the firms, focus on analyzing how these principles are complied with or not. And then, well, that's more or less the general philosophy that we have in our directive.
Sabino, can I just maybe possibly on interruption, because we need to get some further opinions and some questions in. So